Hello everybody, Ray Garner with Garner's Games, here to talk Battletech. As many of y'all probably already know, we have the new core rule changes PDF file that was able to be downloaded from Catalyst Games. Now, just a little background information. I've been playing Battletech since before I graduated high school. I graduated high school at the end of the 80s. So I've been at this game for many moons. I was there before the 3050 ever came out, so I was there for the clan invasion. I've been there through the dark ages when we tried to make it into a clicky game and failed miserably. I've been a store owner during the revival era from Catalyst Games. I've had times when I've lived in areas where I couldn't play very regularly. At least I couldn't find a group very easily. So my opinion of Battletech spans longer than a lot of the current Battletech players have been alive. I've been playing it longer, from what this gentleman here says who did the redesign. What was his name? Keith. I've actually was playing it before he was. So I do feel I speak from a large, vast well of knowledge of the game. I've been through some of the various changes throughout the era, even though some people who have played Battletech for a long time act as if the game has never changed. It has. Most of the time for the better. We can debate a few rules, and that's what we're going to do today. We're going to debate a few rules that are going to be changing with the new core rules. First off, I would like to say that a lot of people are going to be upset at the fact that Catalyst is going all in on the Ill Clan era. My response to that is, duh. No kidding. It's exactly what they need to do. That's what they've got to do. They have basically put out nearly every clan mech that was out there. Not all. They have gotten pretty much the 3025, the 3050, the 3055 mostly. Probably about half the 3058 and a good portion of the 3060 technical readouts all done in plastic now. And there's still more to go. I'm not saying we're done by any stretch of the imagination. We still have a lot of the clicky mechs that need to be made into plastic also from the dark ages. But they have given us old players the biggest thing we want. I have a great looking Orion. I have a really cool looking Wolverine. Marauders that look like Marauders again instead of that silliness that we had for a little while when we couldn't have the unseen mechs. Catalyst, they have not batted 1,000 or batted 1,000. Nobody does. No company ever will. And that's just going to be part of the gist of my story. Most of what is in this document I approve of. I like it. Some of it's the way I've played Battletech this whole time. I didn't even know I was playing the rules wrong. Because at some point in time, either these were the rules that got changed later, or these were house rules that are now being made into rules and should have always been there because they've been house rules in every group I've ever played in multiple towns and multiple states. So let's just get right into it. Now that I've done my little rant and rave and my little background deal. By the way, great forwards by him talking about the objectives of this deal, summing up everything that they've done. All right, I'm not going to go over all one. What was it? A very long list. Oh, they don't have to total here. It's like 100 something different ones. I'm going to hit on key notes or groupings. First and foremost, ammo bins being able to start half loaded. That is great. As a guy who has ran so many Locust 1Vs, I couldn't even begin to guess the total number. With 200 rounds of machine gun ammo sitting in that center torso, even going half loads, I have never come close to using 100 rounds of ammo, even with 2 machine guns, out of a Locust. I don't know anybody ever has. Even in campaigns, I very rarely refill the Locust 1V. I have a campaign going on right now. I refilled the ammo bin when I finally cleared 100, mainly because I lost some of my paperwork. And that was 10 years into the campaign, practically. And that was my first time I reloaded the machine gun ammo on my Locust 1V. So Very good idea. The fifth one right here in the playing the game, unequal number rule switches to use front-loaded initiative. Really? It was rear-loaded? Why would anybody have ever wrote it for the rules to be rear-loaded? I've always played where if I had more mechs and I lost initiative, I had to move 2 units to start with, or more, depending on how many more units I had. Yesterday, we had a battle, and at the end of the final round, my opponent had 2 mechs. I had 5, so I had to move 3, and then 2 to get to my 5. Well, he moved 1 after my first 3, and then 1 after my final 2. I honestly thought that's the way the rules have always been. The fact that we're making it official, that the rules are on initiative movement is now going to be the way it should have always been, is great. That's amazing rule change. Then we're going to go to movement. Most of the movement section is talking about either leg damage and or water. Now, if you play Battletech as long as I have, you avoid water as if it was lava. Because water has always been a borderline death sentence to a mech. I have abused this rule at times. I had a Wasp at one point in time in a campaign. It was a role-playing campaign. We refitted the leg-mounted SRM-2 launchers to torpedo launchers just so I could abuse people who went and parked half in water, half out so they could shoot like, say, a rifleman. I would leg breach them with torpedoes. I played on the battle the other day where we had the big, large lake map. We skirted around. There was not a moment where anybody seriously considered walking through the depth 2 water because we knew we would die. And the fact that you had to walk through it, there was no run option. And you had to make a piloting check every time you made a move in the depth 2 section. All of that has been changed. Instead of being 3 movement points, it's now 2 movement points. There's no PSR for running. For walking. It's only if you run in water do you have to. Makes total sense. The fact that we have played for about 40 years now with waters being a death sentence to a Atlas has been ridiculous. I wholeheartedly praise this change. It means I might actually utilize water. I won't be scared. There's some hull breaching rules changes a little bit later on. They don't give us a number, but it's going to go to a low roll problem. So I'm going to have I need to roll over such and such to not breach my armor. That's going to be a pleasant change to be rewarded for high dice rolls, which you're supposed to be in Battletech, by the way. Let's see. Leg destroys can now walk 1 and run 2 instead of only running 1. Which actually I didn't realize that was a run. I just considered it a hop. They eliminate the PSR for attempting to stand on a destroyed leg of 1. Let's see. Roads reduce level change cost by 1 MP. This is something that some friends and I were talking about a couple years ago that it should do, and it doesn't, and it was ridiculous. Now it does. It also allows vehicles and infantry to make a 2-level change as long as they stay on the road. Perfect. Now we get to the combat phase, and there's some stuff in here that I understand why it's there, but I think it's kind of silly. The weapons attack phase is now going to be renamed the range attack phase. This is for new players. This is not for us old fogies. This is for new players so that new players understand that the range attack phase is not for your hatchet, which to be fair is a weapon. And there's probably an exception to this, but I can't remember a mech that can throw an axe. And it definitely isn't coming back to him. Let's see. Mechs that are shut down or have unconscious crews no longer assign selection and deal. Cool. Oh, and I skipped the movement thing, so I'm going to double back here to number 7. Immobile mechs can no longer be assigned as movement section. That Again, that should have been a house rule that we should have played with, and we never did. That rule should have existed back in the 90s. Let's see, what else would I have? Line of sight always ignores partial hexes. We basically always had to do, we drew the line, or we had a laser sight where we would laser it across, and if it hit the raised terrain, we would count it. If it didn't, we didn't count it. This is a simplistic clarification. If the whole hex isn't a level 1, then or level 2, then it doesn't block line of sight. A much simpler rule. Okay. Water no longer blocks line of sight. Now, this is relevant for scanning and things that require line of sight without shooting, because it also says right after that, attacks are forbidden to be cleared across the water line. So you cannot stand on a mountain and shoot things that are in the water, and things in the water cannot turn around and shoot back up at you. Multiple target modifier is a flat +1 past the first, and there's no additional +2 for shooting out the rear. I always thought that was dumb. I'm firing on sensors anyway. The fact that my rear sensors apparently don't work as good as my front sensors was kind of dumb. So I like that change. Firing while prone, one arm prone firing allowed. I've always allowed it. I've never played in a game where if I had one arm blown off and I was knocked down, I couldn't stick this one arm in the ground and fire my torso out of weapons. So I didn't know it was a rule I couldn't do it. Neither has any of my opponents in all the years I've played. Clearing woods rules have been removed. That one I don't necessarily like, especially since I've been gifted by Catalyst with a ton of hexes, cardboard hexes that I could use to mark that the woods was no longer there. It's also going to be missions where it's necessity. There's like 2 maps, I think, in the current deal, where if I brought a wheeled vehicle or a hovercraft, and if I can't clear wood hexes, they can't cross. So if I have a pursuit or retreat mission, I'm screwed. They can't get off the board. So don't like that one. Charge formula has been rewritten to be based on total movement modifier rather than hexes moved. That includes the hex the target is in, reducing damage from high speed 10+ hex charges. Love this change. Having to line my charger up to charge you, which basically means you had to have made a mistake in the movement phase for me to capitalize and get to run into you at full blast with my 80-ton mech with 5 small lasers. I love that. I also love the fact that we're not going to sit there and reward people for taking a Savannah Master into a kamikaze run across the table to try to blow the legs off of something because of the huge bonus you get for doing a 20-something hex charge. Totally glad with that. I'm not going to go with the club rules. I've never played with anybody who ever grabbed a club, nor have I ever grabbed a club, so those rules changes, they're rule changes. Okay. DFA changes, formula slightly modified. We've gone away from the original era where DFA sounded really cool on paper and were nearly impossible to pull off, to an era where they're like, you can do them, but they still require some decent dice rolls. Now we're changing them to where DFAs are really not that hard. And in all honesty, as common as they are in the books, especially when you get to Malvina Hazen's era, where her forces are constantly DFAing. Their whole mechs are designed with claws on their feet, talons as they call them, to rip apart mechs when they DFA them. DFA needs to be a heavier part of the game. This next modifier change on physical combat, absolutely a love. This is something that has been predominantly an issue in my current campaign that we're doing. We're doing a Forever Mercenary campaign where you gain salvage. So how do you gain salvage where most of us are in the 30-30s era? Oh, well, the best thing is to have a Wolverine run around and kick the shins in on assault mechs until the assault mech dies. or I shouldn't say dies, loses its legs and has to lay there and become salvage. And why do you do that? Because it is piloting plus movement plus target's movement plus any other terrain modifiers -2 to kick. And if you manage to kick them, they have to make a piloting check. It's a huge, huge detriment to the game. That why would you ever punch someone unless they're up a level to where you can't punch them? There is never a reason why you would punch over kicking. So reducing that -2 to a -1, great news. Also, giving a -1 to punching, so now punching and kicking have the same targeting number. So now you need to pick. And kicking no longer stops leg weapons from firing. Since most of them are on the thigh and not the foot, that makes total sense. Now, doesn't mean we won't have somewhere where they're attached to the foot actuator. Love these changes. Love the fact that it makes it much more viable to punch instead of just kick. So that's great. And that is a change that's been needed for a long, long time. Damage. I talked about the hull breach deal already. Leg damage, 1 piloting check. No more of this. Oh, we need to make. I hit your hip, I hit your foot, then I blew your leg off. Also, you need to make one for your hip hit or your foot hit, and now your leg being blown off. So make 1,800 piloting checks. You're bound to fail one of them and fall down. Now it's just the cumulative 1. Without the leg being blown off, and actually I think even with the leg blown off, mechs cannot be reduced. Speed cannot be reduced below a 1-2. Total sense, because I salvaged the Shadowhawk because I basically did a hip, 2 upper legs, a lower leg, and a foot actuator hit, and that Shadowhawk's movement was reduced to 0. It was effectively immobilized because of the rules. That is a good change. Ammunition explosion deals 1 mech where hit instead of 2. Well, obviously we're reducing the impact of ammo explosions. We'll get that here in a minute. So that makes total sense with the theme of what we're doing here. And I don't have a problem with it because most of the time it didn't matter. Because the majority of games I played got hit with ammo. If it was cased to where the pilot was actually going to take the 2 hits, it was cased in an XL engine, so it didn't matter. The mech was dead in pickup games. It only mattered in campaigns. Ammo explosion, the 20-point cap, all internals, with new results for case and case 2. Now, unless I missed it, I don't see the case 1, and I barely see any information on case 2 in this document. So I don't know what the changes are there. 20 points pure internal is a probable still death sentence to all light mechs. So they're probably still dead, especially if it's center torso. Definitely dead. The vast majority of medium mechs are going to be destroyed. Some of the 55s and that maybe the 50-tonners can take it. I haven't actually sat down and done a bubble count to see if they can take the internal damage, but it's not impossible. Your lower end heavies may be in the same situation. Your high end heavies will probably take it unless they've already taken a lot of damage to the torso that detonated. Most assault mechs are going to take it, and that does make them more assaultier. So I want to see. I haven't played with this modification on the rules yet. So I want to play with it and see what I think. But as reading it, I like the idea that maybe my Atlas can survive an AC 20 ammo detonation. Maybe it takes it. I'm going to be curious to see does the ammo detonation when we get to the full-blown rules, does that cause additional internal possible crits where you could result in you blow up this ammo bin, you take all the damage that you're able to withstand it, and now you roll again to see if you detonate the other ammo bin. So we'll see. Arm actuators lower, creating a -1 or a +1 penalty to hit, has been removed if the mech was designed to have them. What I don't see in here, I don't have a problem with this if we're, and we don't, I don't see it if we're going to take the shoulder down to a +1 only also. And maybe it was, and I've just missed it. It's always been a +2 anytime I can think of, though. So that's kind of a an either or situation. Gyro hit becomes a +2 instead of a +3. I love that, because a gyro hit has been a game changer in its entirety. For its entire existence. I mean, a +3 piloting check on your average pilot becoming an 8, even a 7+ on a clan pilot or a veteran pilot in the inner sphere. That is devastating. If you have that happen to, especially something like, say, a quick draw or any other mech that is a jump capable mech that relies on its jump ability to maneuver around, a gyro hit is, you're over, you're done. And it's still devastating. I mean, it's going to make it a 7+ for clan pilot or for Innisphere, and a 6+ for clan pilots to run or to jump. But those numbers are doable. The other ones, I mean, you only risked it if you had to, and then you just prayed you made that hard dice roll. The hip actuator changes. Completely love this. I've always thought the hip was overcomplicated. And it doesn't say that it does or doesn't, but I'm going to assume that you're now going to still be able to kick with a hip het, which you couldn't before. So I like those changes. Foot actuator no longer calls as a PSR when hit or a modifier. So your foot actuator is just your foot actuator. I do think it makes the foot actuator unimportant when it's hit, unless it sets up a situation where jumping with it still causes a piloting check. So I have to see the fully written rules on that one to see if I like it or not like it. That's kind of a wash at the moment. Each attempt to stand no longer creates 1 heat. I had no idea that it did. So goodbye to a rule I didn't know existed and nobody has ever used. Mech shutdown no longer requires a +3 PSR. When did that go into effect? Again, no idea this was a thing. Never seen anybody try to enforce that. The only thing that's ever been about a shutdown mech is if you have to make a piloting check after you're shut down, you automatically fail. And I assume that rule still exists. Let's see, additional action. Falling underwater no longer breaks damage calculation into 2 steps, where there's one for striking the water, one for striking the bottom. Again, we've always avoided water, so I never knew that rule existed. The facing after falling has been deleted. That is gone. It was something that always was a pain to explain to people. Everybody kind of caught on to it. That was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, it wasn't that hard, but it was annoying. So to basically change it to where you fall on your face, unless you roll 1 instead of a 4, and you roll 1, then you fall on your back. Okay, the simplification makes it easier to teach people. Totally down with that. Seatbelt check no longer adds damage to the mech, terrain modifiers, etc. to PSR. I like this because it means that if I fall with a gyro hit, I'm not more likely to get bounced around in my cockpit. It's a piloting check, period. So I like that. Conscious checks are only occur at the highest level. So if I take 3 head hits, in a single turn and I didn't die, then I just make a 7+ and I'm good. Dumping ammo rules removed. Do not like that one. I understand because it creates a simplicity, especially since we're reducing the ammo explosion deal. We're also giving you the option to come in with half ammo. So, all in all, it makes sense. I don't like it, though. It takes out a little theme that I happen to enjoy. Skinning rule for mechs is removed. Thank you. I've always thought that was dumb, so I'm glad it's gone. Force withdrawals, retreat conditions, and add a surrender clause. We've added a surrender clause anyway, so I like that. Weapons, a whole lot of mech stuff that was added in the Dark Ages, the flails, some of the fragmental ammo. The full head ejection system is the only one that they're removing from this I don't like. And it's not like it's not going to exist in the game, but full head ejection system should be a campaign deal or a super advanced tech deal. It should not be a standard core rule. A lot of special ammunition, acid missile, thunder missiles, arrow force standard, infernal force, and smoke force, and thunder force, all being added to the core rules. That makes total sense. The mass chart for mass failures, which now applies to several different things, it's all being put together into one check. And automatic fails are no longer possible. So, simplification, that's a good one. Artillery attacks apply a fixed +4 and do not apply in immobile modifiers when firing indirect. And are fired indirect, they use the standard modifiers. Okay, that's cool. Autocannons. Now, they list in the pre-deal that basically autocannons have always been a weapon that, in the vast majority of players' opinion, suck. They're terrible weapons. I've never been on board with that opinion, but I have always been in the minority, so I cannot say that any of these things I've read here are not improvements. First autocannon critical does not disable the AC. Like that. Autocannon rotaries unjam occur during the movement phase instead of the end phase. And does not prevent attacks or actions on the part of the unjamming mech. Now can use caseless ammo. Can't remember what caseless ammo does off the top of my head, but I think that's going to be cool. Ultra autocannons no longer jam. Thank you. I always thought it was dumb that they did. So lots of changes there with autocannons. Let's see. Gauss rifle heavy, improved heavy. The required piloting checks due to firing these weapons have been deleted. It is dumb to have a weapon that its recoil is so bad that your pilot has to make a piloting check. So I'm glad that has been removed. And I haven't fought a lot with heavy Gauss rifles, so I didn't realize that. I should say I didn't realize. I'd forgotten until this rule said it wasn't there. I'd forgotten about it because I don't use them very often. Extended range missiles no longer half their cluster hit results if in minimum range, and now use Artemis. I never have understood why sometimes you can't use Artemis. I've always thought that was dumb. So, and I like that we're not doing the half cluster thing. This one here, thank you. This rule needed to be changed forever. MRM +1 penalty removed. Removed. A -1 cluster hit penalty added. That makes so much more sense. Instead of being harder to hit with the missiles, it's harder to hit with all the missiles. It makes so much more sense. That is a fantastic rule change. Let's see. Next one I noted was particle cannon project capacitors. An attack roll of 2 with the particle cannon no longer burns out the system. Effectively, particle cannons used in capacitors no longer jam. Who would have thunk? Great idea. All right. Next up. Claws lose their +1 to hit. Lances lose their +1 to hit. Maces requiring a piloting check if they miss. Deleted. All those are good changes. The C3 computer system has been completely reworked. Great, because C3s were either absolutely useless or completely broken. There was no middle ground with them. If I had things that could negate your C3 network, you were screwed. And if I didn't, I was screwed. So I love the fact that we're reworking the system in its entirety to make it more playable. We got some luminous armor. Pharaoh no longer immune to AP ammo. The +1 penalty for hull breach is removed. +1 critical check if the armor or struck ammo is removed. On the impact resistance. I'm sorry, I jumped to armor classes here. Reflective armor, heat having effect removed. No longer receives a penalty if struck by AP ammo. And that was laser reflective. Reactive armor is no longer immune to armor piercing ammo. That's good. Heavy gyros. Never actually played with a heavy gyro, but I like this reworking because I barely remember the rules to heavy gyros. Reworked to need 4 hits to destroy and no longer receive a PSR when hit or running with a jamish gyro. That makes the heavy gyro worth taking. So that is good. Mass reduced the activation failure penalty from 2 automatic crits to 1 crit on a leg. Random leg. This is actually a rule I had missed because I thought mass still seared your legs into worthless garbage. AMS rolls versus a single misses revised so that a low roll is bad and high roll is good for the AMS user. All AMS can activate twice per turn and can reduce a cluster flight to 0. Very good. The AMS, when it was originally introduced, was an absolute waste. It was total garbage. It has been improved multiple times. This makes it much, much better. Only reference to case 2, no reference to case at all. Critical hits checks made for location protected by case 2 receive a -1 modifier instead of being negated on a separate 2-up roll. So if you have case 2, to get a crit in there, it's now going to require a 9 or better. Much simpler. Makes more sense than having a whole nother roll where, oh, you get 3 crits. Oh, look, I rolled an 8. Nah, you don't get anything. That is all of the main rule section. I am only aggravated by a few things that I would like to play test before I'm like upset with them. But on paper, I don't like a couple of things. But the vast majorities are rules that I either already play with or I avoided using like the plague, like water, because I knew how detrimental it was. So this to me is about an 85% improvement over the previous rule set. So I think this is a great direction ahead and a great idea. So get ready for the changes. And I think it's going to be a good thing. It's going to be good for the game. And and to just go back to my previous conversation at the very beginning. Whenever the clans invaded, we stopped really talking about the 4th Succession War and the 3rd Succession War. And it was all about the clan invasion. And the timeline kept moving forward on in to the formation of the Second Star League, the destruction of the Smoke Jaguars, the eventual total destruction of the Federated Commonwealth and the FedCom Civil War. Much goodness happened in a very compact time zone where the vast majority of most players of Battletech still live. All of us old folks, if we're really old, we still live in the Third Succession War. If we're just old, i.e. younger than me, then you pretty much live the clan invasion through the FedCom Civil War. That's your home. There's got to be somebody out there that lives the Dark Ages, and I'm so sorry. I'm just sorry. But, you know, we all had rough times. But in the end, we're in a new era. It is time for the Ill Clan to be fleshed out. It's time for us to see what the Third Star League is like. And I think it's going to be the vast majority of good. Now, I'm fixing to stop this video, and then I'm going to record another video that I would like you to check out. And I'm going to talk about the upcoming core set. And my thoughts on it as... It's not even a core set. I'm sorry. It's not a core set. The core set's different. The core set is great. I will go that. Correct myself here. I'm talking about the new starter set. And we'll get to that one in another video. But so check that one out. It'll be uploaded just shortly after this one. All right, thank y'all. And may roll a lot of boxcars. Check y'all next time.